sure you've noticed that for the past several days I have not uploaded a training vlog to this channel. And I wanted to share with you why. A lot of the things that I've been doing for the past several days to train my body in order to fulfill my goal of the Olympic lifts are not that sexy. In fact, they're not that interesting to watch. But I've recorded them anyway, and I'm going to share it with you in just a moment. You know that my goal is to be able to perform very complex, explosive, precision type movements that they call the Olympic lifts, which include the snatch, which is a beautiful movement and requires great strength, power, but precision technique, as well as the clean and jerk, which is a bit more of a more of a brutish exercise. It's not as clean and precision intensive as the snatch, but requires a lot of the same attributes, which are flexibility, speed, power, mobility in its execution. So they're both very technical lifts. For the past forever, I think, in my training and approach to sport, I've always been a fucking brute. I've always been hard driving, blunt force in my execution. I mean, I played football, and even the positions that I played were purely bang, bang. That's just the way I played. I never really paid very close attention to plays, technique. It was all raw aggression. That's how I attack things. I'm a raw aggressor. Big, broad, and forceful. And that's been my approach to basically everything in my fucking life. That's just my character. You know, like a battery ram. That's how I get things done. My choosing the Olympic lifts as my new goal wasn't accidental. There are things that I need to work on physically, physiologically, emotionally, energetically, psychologically, in order to be the type of person that can execute those freaking lifts. I've got to be patient, I've got to be disciplined, and more so than any other character virtue that I need to develop in myself in order to be able to execute those lifts is courage. Now you might say, like, what? Courage? How? Why? Why would you need courage to be able to Olympic lift, Elliot? Because I literally have to set aside who I've been up until this point. Blunt force, battery ram in everything I do. That's who I am. That's the character structure. Elliot Hulse. 2, soft, yielding, precision, accuracy. There's more of a feminine quality to those lifts. They require a greater deal of flexibility, a greater deal of, from where I am, yielding. What that looks like physically, you know, in my exercise and in my training, is lighten the weights. Now, many of you have told me this, but, you know, I'm coming from brute force, strongman training, football, rugby, to a whole new sport, and I'm bringing the same attitude with me from this to that, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So I literally have to change the way I approach this, and the way I have to change the way I approach it is by changing myself. So I need the courage to embrace a different version, perhaps a stronger version. It's always subjective, but for what I want to become, a stronger version of Elliot looks a lot softer in his approach. So, lighter weights and a tremendous focus on flexibility and mobility. I just don't have it yet, especially in my ankles, especially in my knees, and especially in my hips. I haven't needed it for the sports that I did before, because all the other sports that I engaged in just required being a brute, being a beast. This doesn't require pure bruteliness, brutishness. And I can't be a brute if I'm going to execute those Olympic lifts. And that is my goal, that is my focus. So, it's going to require a breakdown season for me before I can build that up. I have to literally take multiple steps backwards before I can move forward with those particular things. If I approach the lifts at the level of the lifts, then I'm going to struggle, and it's going to be a long, arduous, and unnecessarily long, arduous journey, riddled with pain and injury, frustration, which always leads to wanting to give up. It's not the way I'm going to approach this at all. I'm going to approach it from a very different standpoint, one that you will probably not see shared anywhere in the fitness world. I don't care, unless you study like martial arts, you know, it's totally different. You know, I'm talking like old ancient mind-body arts of exercise and execution. You're not going to find too many strength and conditioning coaches. You're definitely not going to find any personal trainers, and you won't find too many bodybuilders, probably none, that are going to go through and share with you the journey that I'm sharing with you. Because it's not sexy. It's a breakdown. It's a yielding. It's a softening. It's a becoming more feminine in order to become more masculine. You see, we try to label two sides of a coin, and every coin has two sides, and everything, every experience in your life and in the world has two sides. You can't have good without evil, right? We'll come back to that. But you can't have summer without winter. You can't have male without female. You can't have light without darkness. But we try to label one side and have that side win, and glorify one side without embracing the other. So we say this is good and this is bad. This is favorable, this is unfavorable. When you need the unfavorable in order to magnify or to even appreciate the favorable. You need evil to appreciate good. You need that contrast. Now, light and darkness is synonymous with light being very male, because they're particles. They're aggressing. Light aggresses itself like a penis. It shines. But it is useless if it doesn't have the more yielding quality of darkness, which is absence, emptiness. Vagina is empty, right? There's nothing in there. Penis lets itself out. So the reason why I use that metaphor, light, dark, female, male, is because the type of training that I'm going to be doing and what I'm going to share with you and the journey that you're going to watch me go on for perhaps the next several months is a very dark, female type training, right? Having sex with a black woman. Do you understand? Just metaphors. Hopefully you guys can follow me. So it's going to require that emptiness. It's going to require that yielding. It's going to require that opening of my muscle, opening of my physiology, opening of my mind. And it's going to look like a process by which my body becomes softer, if you will, especially my legs. My legs in particular are so bulky and big, and the muscles, it's imbalanced. My legs are very imbalanced. The muscles that are bulky and big are riddled with all types of trigger points and muscle viruses. I mean, my quads are a mess. They're beautiful to look at because they're gigantic, right? If you haven't seen my quads, watch my videos. You know what? I'll show you my quads. My quads are freaking gigantic, right? Look at that. Look at those things. But they're not healthy. I hope you understand. They're not healthy in that inside there's all types, it's a mess. I can describe specifically what muscles are hypertonic. If you look at the hips, I'll even like step back so you can watch me do this. If you look at my hips, you're not going to notice this unless you're a therapist or someone who has a keen eye. But I have a rotation to the right. Boom, I rotate this way. And what that means is my adductor is tight on this side. My knee has a tendency to want to do this. So as I'm going into those squats, those deep-seated squats, in order to perform the snatch, I'm getting a lot of poor traction in my knee. Boom, boom, right? And to be completely honest, because I was a fool and I was letting the ego drive my training for the past several weeks, I didn't really consider, I didn't pay attention to, I wasn't sensitive to, I knew it was there, but I wasn't sensitive to, I wasn't yielding to my fucking imbalances. I know that's there, but yet I try to ignore it, right? Now, I'm dealing with my knee fucking is killing me. Now it's not an injury that's going to set me back, but it's a warning. Your body always fucking warns you. It's a warning that, okay dude, you can't do this. Not the way you are, you can't do this. You need to step back and fix me first. So there are a number of steps that I'm gonna go through, and I'm gonna share them with you. One of them is, I know my nervous system is off. I don't get an even feed from my nervous system, my peripheral nervous system, out into my body. I know why, and I know what I need to do to correct it. I'll share that with you as I go along, but that's one of the things that I need to go make an appointment with my upper cervical practitioner. I had to go and get some massage, not lessons, sessions. But mainly, most importantly, I need to take care of myself the right way. And it begins with the nervous system, but then ultimately what you will see practically is a stretching and a softening of the adductor on this side. Just watch, when you rotate this way, boom, it's because this muscle's tight. It's a chicken or an egg situation. Part of the reason why I rotate is because I have a bony deformation. But anyway, rotate in, and the peroneals on this side become very tight. Just look what happens. Boom, rotate in, and look what happens here. This shortens as this shortens. The body works in zigzags. So I have a shortening, and a shortening. So I've got to really stretch here. I've got to stretch here, well, in a different way, and then I've got to stretch here. I need to bring my leg back into this externally rotated position. Right? So I've got that going on my right leg, right? And it's for a number of reasons. One, like I said, I've got a bony deformation I was born with. My pubic symphysis looks like this. I had an x-ray once, and the doctor said, he asked me if I got hit by a bus. I was like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I never got hit by a bus. But basically, I was born with a weird hip, right? But, I was cool up until, you're asking your body to do stuff that it doesn't normally do. You got to address that. It doesn't mean I can't do it. It just means I have to pay close attention to how I go about doing it. So I require this very sensitive approach to training. Dark side of training. People like to say the dark side of training. This is really the dark side of training. The dark side of training is the yielding, soft, female aspect that has to be considered. You can't have anabolic. There's no catabolic. You can't have catabolic without anabolism. You can't have light without darkness. This is the dark side of training, right? Not as sexy as you thought it would be, right? You thought it would be, bald heads and big beards and blood coming out of the nose while somebody does a squat. But yeah, that's the light side of training. That's the aggressive side of training. I made a video this weekend that infers an aspect of that hard type of training. It's even so hard that it's soft. I called it the transcendent rep. You've got to be so hard that you let go into it, right? You can't get away from this balance, right? Anyway, there's no such thing as hard without soft. The softer you get, the harder you can go. You need to understand this in all aspects of life. But anyway, that's not the point of this video. But let me share with you the other leg and what I'm going to need to do. If you notice, the rotation happens here, then there's a shortening of the muscles on this side, and namely, it's throughout the IT band on this side. Boom. It's the exact opposite of this leg. This leg, it's in here. This leg, it's out here. And then a shortening in here. So what you're going to see me doing a lot of, depending on if you want to watch me do this and stuff, because it sometimes takes over an hour, of foam rolling, of stretching, of self-myofascial release, and then translating the new open tissue into movement patterns that support the lifts, i.e. deep squats with very flexed ankles and knees, in being able to get very comfortable in that position. Overhead squats is going to be fascinating for those of you who have the patience and the interest. in this kind of thing. But it's not sexy. It's not the fast, explosive stuff. If I want to be fast and explosive, I got to be soft and yielding. So that's it, guys. I appreciate sharing this journey with you. I think it will be tremendously enlightening for many generations. People, you know, how long YouTube lasts, but to go back and watch this series. Begin with my mistake in the beginning, right? And I knew I was fucking making a mistake, but the ego, you know, doesn't want to admit. And I'm getting feedback from you guys, and you guys, I appreciate your feedback because you're a mirror, and you're like, Elliott, you got to work on that flexibility. Elliott, you need to lighten the weight. And I'm like, I know. And I pride my videos, myself, on being completely transparent with you, right? Without pretense, right? Without faking it. I don't want to give you any bullshit. So there's no bullshit here about Elliott Hulse. The fact is, I need to soften up, and I'm going to share that with you. Hopefully it inspires you and others when you find that you're bumping up against resistance in your training and in your life, to realize that there's an opportunity available to you. And it looks the exact opposite of what you've probably been doing in order to get the results that you have up until this point. And it means back off. Back off. Softness doesn't mean giving up. You're a pussy. It means recognizing the law of contrast, the law of seasons, recognizing the dual nature that is ever present in you, in life, in the universe, in God. Good, evil, sun, moon. It's all there. And give you permission also to fall into that abyss, fall into the darkness, yield, let go, so that you can grow stronger. Talk to you next time.